Okay, we're in the middle of the parshios of the Yetzias Mitzrayim, Shmos, Ve'era Boy, and we have many of the Yesodis of Emunah in these parshios, and there's so many topics. This is a topic which is very it's a topic that bothers almost everybody. It bothers almost everybody. We find in the end of Shmos, what happened? Shmos, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was told by the Kodesh Baruch Hu, he go tell Paro to to let the Jews go. He went to the Yidden, and they believed him, and he gave them the code word that he's the Mashiach. Code word was Parko Pekadati, that he's the Moshiach. And then he went to Paro, and he was told Paro exactly what he was instructed to do. Let us go for 3 days. And even though Hashem told him that Paro is not going to listen, Ani Echpadati es Liboy, so Paro got very upset and threw him out. And instead of listening to him, he doubled the work. They had to make 600 bricks a day, but now they had to go find their own material to make the bricks, the straw. He wouldn't give them the straw, so the shibud was the avoda. It was backbreaking. It was hard. It was impossible, and the taskmasters, the Yiddish taskmasters, they tried to plead with Paro to lessen it, and he says, no, you're looking for excuses how to get out of work. Work harder. Don't think about getting out. And they met Moshe Rabbeinu and they complained, and they said, why'd you go to Paro? And they lost their emunah. They lost their emunah in the Yetzias Mitzrayim. Moshe was broken. Moshe was broken because Moshe felt. We know that he had a midah that he felt for Klal Yisrael. He was very. It struck his essence to the core that Klal Yisrael were suffering so much. He went back to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, V'yoshev Moshe el Hashem, and he says, Hashem, lama haroyos lama zeh shalachtani. Why did you do evil to the people? Why did you send me? Now we can understand this. We can feel for Moshe Rabbeinu. We've had this many times when bad things happen, like Hashem Yirachem yesterday. Bad things happen, and there's tragedies. Whether it's personal tragedies or national tragedies, family tragedies, community tragedies, they're tragedies, and it shakes our emunah to the core, and we say, why? Why have you done evil to this? Why have you done evil to Hashem? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why have you done evil? Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered Moshe Rabbeinu in the beginning of Vayera. And there's a very important pasuk that the Meforshim dwell on. Vayedaber Elokim el Moshe vayomer elav ani Hashem. What is the meaning of this pasuk? Vayedaber Elokim el Moshe. Elokim spoke to Moshe, and he said, Ani Hashem. What? Well, we know you're Hashem. You told him that, in Parsha Shmos, you said, it's Hashem is Eki Asher Ekia, Ani Hashem. We know he's. Why do you have to tell Moshe now, Ani Hashem? And the language of the pasuk is very strange. Starts off with Vayedaber. Now you should know, when you learn Chumash, the word Vayedaber is a harsh lashon. It's a harshness. The Chumash used the lashon Vayedaber when he's speaking strongly. And then he uses, what term does Hashem use for himself? Elokim. Hashem has different names. And the two major names are Elokim and Yud Kei Vav Kei. We don't pronounce it, of course. We call it Hashem because of the covet of the Shem. So there's Yud Kei Vav Kei and there's Elokim. We don't say also with the Hey, we say Elokim because of the covet of Hashem. Vayedaber Elokim El Moshe. Elokim represents what we call Midas Hadin. This is Midas Hadin. Kadosh Baruch Hu has two midos, two attributes that the names are not him, the names are the way he relates to us. These are the names of Hashem. Hashem's names are not him, they are reflective of how he interacts with his creatures, his creation. And when he acts in the form of Elokim, this is Midas Hadin. Vayedaber Elokim, that's Midas Hadin. That's divine justice. It's strict, mishpat. This is the midah of mishpat. Vayedaber, and so he's speaking very strongly to Moshe. Vayedaber Elokim el Moshe, and he says, Ani Hashem. Vayomer is a soft lashon. That he already switched to a softer lashon. Vayomer. Vayomer implies it's a softer type of speech, and he says, Ani Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei represents the shame of Hashem, which is Midas Harachamim. This is Midas Harachamim. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in His divine mercy. He loves Klal Yisrael. He deals with Klal Yisrael with total rachamim, with total ava. So it's a steer. Is he Elokim or is he, what is he, Elokim? Or is he Hashem? So the Ribono Shel Olam is telling Moshe Rabbeinu something here that every Jew, every person in fact has to realize. Of course it's easier said than done. It's not, but something that we all have to deal with, and we have to put it on the top of our brains, or try to knock it into ourselves, try to make it a part of our way of thinking. In the course of a lifetime, things occur which are very painful. Everybody has difficult times, whether it's illness, parnasa, accidents, problems raising children, problems in your housing, whatever the problems are, major problems, minor problems, there are extremely painful problems. Situations where we think that the Almighty is punishing us. It looks like Hashem is punishing us, like He's angry with us, like He's abandoned us. Keli, lama azavtani. I've never been able to put my mind around that statement. Why have you abandoned me? Lama Keli, lama azavtani. Why have you abandoned me? He doesn't abandon anybody. He doesn't abandon anybody. Many people in the Holocaust have said, why did Hashem abandon us in the Holocaust? And I heard from Ezra Tauber, he was a Holocaust survivor, and he says, abandoned? He says, I saw Hashem more in the Holocaust than I see Him today in America, where he lived in America. He says, I saw Him more in the Holocaust than I see Him today in America. But it looks like Hashem is punishing us. He's abandoned us. The faith of a Jew requires a person to realize what Rebbe Akiva and his Rebbe, Nachum Ish Gamzu, taught us. There's a famous Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara says, "You chayiv levarech al hara k'moshe mevarech al hatoiv." You're obligated to make a bracha on ra, just like you make on good. What does that mean? The Gemara asks the question, what do you mean you mechayiv to make the bracha on the ra the same you make the bracha on the toiv? If you're talking about the nusach of the bracha, it's not true. Because on the tov, we make hatova meitiv. On something good that happens, you make hatova meitiv or shechiyanu. And on Besuris Ros, on something bad that happens, you say Baruch Dayan Emes. On tragedies, you say Baruch Dayan Emes. So it can't be the same Nusach HaBracha. So Amarava Lo Nitzrucha Ela Lekabaleinahu B'Simcha. To be Makabel the Ra with Simcha. When a person makes Baruch Dayan Emes, he should make it with Simcha. Now that's very, very hard. This is a person, he just lost a loved one.
Chayiv.
He's chayiv to say Baruch Dayan Emes.
No, it says this.
Chayiv Levorach. You're right, yeah, thank you.
What do you make? What's the chiluk you're making? What do you?
Again, it can't be the Nusach HaBracha, right? Because on Besuras Tovas, you say a Tova Meitiv. You inherit $1 million, you make a Tova Meitiv, you know? Yeah, something good happened. A good occasion. You make a Shechiyanu or a Tova Meitiv. On Besuras Ros, person's relative, close relative dies, he makes Baruch Dayan Emes at a funeral. They make Baruch Dayan Emes at the Levaya. Right? So what's Pshat? So Rava says, Makabel it with Simcha. Makabel it with Simcha. You know what that is? Makabel it with Simcha. Here's a person, there was, I think it was the Aderis, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, please forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Aderis was a great Rav. He came from Europe and he became the Rav of Yerushalayim for a while, and his daughter passed away. And they had the Levaya, and he was locked up in his room, and he lost a daughter. It was terrible. She was, wasn't even, never reached the age to become married, to become a kala, And they were about to have the Levaya, and he's locked up in his room, and he says, "I'm not ready yet." And he waited and waited. I don't know how long it was, until finally he came out. After the Levaya, after the burial, the Kavura, so they asked him, what was delaying the Rav? He says, I was working on myself to make the bracha, Dayan Emes, with the same simcha that I made when she was born. That was, you hear that? That was a gadol. That's how a gadol thinks. The same simcha that you had when she was born, he wanted to make now, when he's burying her. That's superhuman strength to do such a thing. Superhuman strength. But the Gemara says we're chayiv to try to get to that. We're chayiv to try to get to that. And then the Gemara brings down, where do we know this from? What's the pasuk? Which psukim we know? And then it says, V'kein Omar, Kein Tana Mishmei Rabbi Akiva. This is the famous incident with Rabbi Akiva. It looks bad. It looks bad. No. Everything, and we call him Rachmana. If you notice in this statement of Rabbi Akiva, he's called Rachmana. Rachmana means the merciful one. That's the language we use to represent a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Called the Ovid Rachmana Latav Ovid. Everything is for the good. You know the Maaseh with Rabbi Akiva. I have to go. The famous Maaseh with the Gemara now brings the Maaseh with Rabbi Akiva. He was traveling with his Talmidim. He used to collect money, and he had a donkey, and the donkey to carry them, and he had they used to carry fire. They didn't have matches, so he had to carry a little fire. I guess he had a little covered candlestick, which inside a lantern or some sort of, to have a fire that he could have some light to learn by. He wanted to learn at night, and he had a rooster to wake him up in the morning. And he went to the city, and the city refused to accept him. They were very bad mannered people. They were very selfish people, and nobody would give them a place to stay. Here, these poor travelers, they need a little place to stay, and in a room. Nobody accepted them in. There was no hachnasas orchim, so they had to go out to the forest. It's famous, man. They had to go out to the forest. They went to the forest, and in the middle of the night, the wind came and blew out his candle, and then a wildcat came and ate up the rooster, and then a mountain lion came and ate and killed the donkey, and on everything he said, Kol the Ovid Rahman Latav Ovid, Gamzu Latova, Gamzu to everything. Gamzu, his Rebbe was Nachum Ish Gamzu, Gamzu Latova, right? It was terrible. He's there. He lost his light. He lost his rooster. He lost his donkey. Now they got to schlep all their baggage, and then they got in the middle of the night. So in those days they had slave traders. They had slave traders. So a band of probably Arabs. Arabs. That was a big. They claimed the whiteys, had the slave trade. It wasn't. It was the Arabs. They invented the slave trade. So they had the slave traders, and these marauders came in the middle of the night and captured the whole city and took them away made slaves out of them. So the whole city was just ransacked. And he went back to the city and he saw what had happened, and he said, "Call the Ovid Rahman Latav Ovid. If I would have had the candle, they would have seen the candle and come after us. If I would have had the rooster, they would have heard the rooster and they would have come after us. If I would have had the donkey, they would have heard him bray, go, hee-haw, and they would have come after us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved me with this. It looked like the worst possible tragedy. In the middle of the night, he lost everything that he was, he's traveling on the highway, and your Toyota, conks out. And you don't know what a great, bracha it was that you didn't get to the city on time because something happened in the city or whatever. There's something good there. Call the Ovid Rahman Latav Ovid.
Rabbi, they fly with Peugeot.
Definitely gonna fail. That's part of the package.
Joel, you don't get upset when it fails. You accept it for
Toyota, you don't accept failure.
And this is the Gra. The Gra on this Gemara. Lo yoylam he adam ragal loimer kol di Ovid Rahman Latav Ovid. HaKol toiv. The ain ra. There's nothing called ra. There's no ra. There is no ra. There's no bad. Hashem, why have you done this bad to me?
There is ra.
Anyway, and from Hashem, right? Okay. Well, that's not exactly true. That's not exactly. Everything that happens here.
Reacted is bad.
I also thought there is no ra. It's dero. I think the Nefesh HaChaim, if I'm not mistaken, says there is the outside and there is mahut of ra. There is evil as standing as.
Okay, that's Nefesh HaChaim, and it's also morals. Okay, Pesach is saying that there is such a thing as Ra. Okay, so now this is I don't want to get.
There is one Amar, I forget which, that eventually darshan that what the Satan does is also L'Shem Shemayim ultimately.
That's right. That's a good one, right?
Satan comes and gives him a kiss for that.
Rav Papa darshan. He gave Rav Papa a kiss. No. This. My son in Beitar asked me a question. He teaches Bachram, and they have something called yin yang. They have a yin yang. You know what yin yang is? So he asked me, is it permissible for a yid? The Bachram wanted to sew a yin yang on. It was cute. He was snazzy. Like he wanted to, on his jacket. He wanted to. Sew on a yin yang or buy a yin yang sweatshirt, whatever it was. He wanted a yin yang. So he asked me, is the Bachar asked me, is that avodah zorah? My son didn't know what to tell him, so he called me up and he says, Vada, what do you mean? Where did yin yang come? I just saw a video of a woman, everything that's happening in Iran, and she was telling everybody what was going on in Iran and Tehran. He says, I'm a Zoroastrian. Oh, they still have them. They still have the Zoroastrians. The Zoroastrians, they can't believe. They've looked at the world and they saw good and bad. So there must be a God of good, a force of good. They call it a force. There's a God of good and a God of bad, right? there's a constant battle between them, and that's the yin yang, the two different forces. This was very prevalent at the time in Bayis Sheni, when the Anshe Knesset Gedolah formulated the Nusach HaTfilah, and they start off the Birchas of Yotzer Or, right? Yotzer Or, Kadosh Baruch Hu was Yotzer Or, Uvoirei Choshech, and he creates, that's another thing, he creates darkness. It was really everything should be Or, but he creates darkness. Not that he created the concept of darkness. Not that he created the laws of nature that create darkness when there's an absence of light. He creates, Boirei is Lashon Hova, that's another shir. He's Boirei Choshech, Oisa Shalom Uboirei Esa Koil. So there's Yotzer Or, so this is
The Nusach more is different.
Nusach of the Nusach of the pasuk in Yeshaya, Uboire es hara.
Right.
Uboire es hara. That's the Nusach in Yeshaya. They said Boire es kol. Kol meaning even the ra. There was a kush. Yes.
If there's no Ra, is it possible that there are some things which are more good than other things?
That's.
In which case, then you would be able to say that this is more bad. That there's something which is worse than.
So what the Gemara is telling us, and what the Meforshim on this pasuk is, and the Limud, and Chanami by Moshe Rabbeinu, as my son pointed out, don't say Lama Hareyosim La'amazeh. Don't attribute bad to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Everything that Kodesh Baruch Hu does is good. So the Gemara says, anything bad that happens to us, yes, there is bad in the world, like he said. There is bad in the world. There's Ra in the world. And we do it to ourselves because of our chatoim. So there is something called Ra. But even the Ra, HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't let it happen to us unless it's good. There has to be a good. He created Ra for, there's not just the kapor. There's a whole talich. There's a whole talich of the way Maisa Bereshis. It's punishments. It's kaporas. It's also for us to create nisyonos. It's for us to have free will. If there was only good, we wouldn't have free will. There has to be Ra in order for us to have free will. And he wanted us to have the nisoyon of Amunah, because Amunah is the basic. The basic. What's Anoichi? The first mitzvah in the Aseres Hadibros is Anoichi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hotzeisicha Mieretz Mitzrayim. Hashem, that Hashem is everything. Hashem is everything. So Amunah is the basic mitzvah, and there is no bad. Call the Avad Rahman L'Tava, and even if something happens to me and it's bad on our level, yes, there's bad on our level, but call the Avad Rahman. Who did it? Everything that happens to me is there's Hashgacha Pratis. We have to have another shir on Hashgacha Pratis. I have to tell you this: the sheet of the Goin, the Shmuel Malzin. Shmuel Malzin is a Talmud of the Goin, and he's got a whole sefer on. He's got a whole sefer on Emunah B'Tochen Lefi the Shita of the Vilna Gaon, and he says there are different levels, but the basic level is that a Kosh Baruch Hu of Hashgacha Pratis is there are different strengths, different levels of Hashgacha Pratis. On the tzaddik, on the tzaddikim of Klal Yisrael, there's Hashgacha Pratis on very, very strong Hashgacha Pratis, guiding them every way. The further away you get, the further down the totem pole you get. If you stam Klal Yisrael, there's also Hashgacha Pratis, but it's much less. And then if you get even farther away, there's also less Hashgacha Pratis. According to the Medrash with Shimon Bar Yochai, and it's quoted by the Baal Shem Tov, there's Hashgacha Pratis even on animals. But that's not because of their Maisim Tovim, but there's Hashgacha Pratis, even the Goin says this. Everything that happens was predetermined from Maisa Bereshis. Now we have to understand that. How does that fit in with free will? There's a dichotomy. There's a stira. a dichotomy. There's a steer between the fact that everything is predetermined and we have free will, we can change it. There's a famous Orach Chaim on that by the Shvatim, by Mechiras Yosef. I won't go into it. We have free will, but there's hashgacha pratis. But everything that happens is because of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So even the Ra is for the purpose of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So I said this year, what I'm saying now, I said several years ago, and I'll repeat it again. There was a Gezerah on Klal Yisrael. They had to go into bondage in Mitzrayim for 400 years. They were only there, this is now 210 years later. You can make a cheshbon. How do you get 210 years? Because we know Yocheved was born, Bein HaChomas, as they got in. So when they went into Mitzrayim, Yocheved was born. And we know from the Medrash that she was 130 years old when she had Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu now is 80 years old. So how much is that? That's 210. So now, this is at 210, after going down into Mitzrayim. They have not finished the obligation of being in Mitzrayim for 400 years. There was a gezerah on them. There was a fight going on in Shemayim. That's what the Medrash brings down. That's why by Kriyas Yamsuf, the Tsar of Mitzrayim was fighting the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and that's why it says Hamayim lehem choyma miyaminu mismolo, and the word choyma is missing a vav, chema. What's the chema? It wanted to drown the Klal Yisrael because it wasn't time up. The time was not yet up. These people belong to me. Give them back. The Tsar Mitzrayim wanted them back. He was angry. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to fight all the shows you we don't know what's going on. There was a fight in Shemayim. What all these fights in Shemayim, all these different koyachas of Shemayim, and like the Nefesh HaChaim, there's a koyach of Ra in the world, and there's a Satan, and the Satan is in charge of all the Ra in the world, but he's a shliach. He's a shliach of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. He's not like the Goyim say he's an independent, spiritual being that fights Hashem. The Catholics, they say the Satan, he's independent of Hashem and he's fighting Hashem. He's not fighting Hashem. He's doing the shlichus. That's the whole Gemara. They hate the Gemara, the Sefer Iyuv. They hate the Sefer Iyuv. The Christians hate it because it's against their whole theology. Because it says over there that the Satan, before he did anything to Iyuv, had to go get permission from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give him the Nisyonis. He's a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's all. He's a malach like any other malach. So they were not yet out. Why did the Klal Yisrael not believe Moshe Rabbeinu? It says, Dosim v'aviram. They were constantly fighting Moshe Rabbeinu. You're not the Moshiach. Why? You're too early. We have another 190 years left. We have 190 years left. That's why they didn't believe Moshe Rabbeinu. It was very hard for them to believe Moshe Rabbeinu. And now everything got worse. It says the taskmasters that met Moshe Rabbeinu, ever since you came, you said you were the Mashiach, and now everything got worse. Go jump in a lake. Get out of here. You're making things worse for us. His time's not up. We got another 190 years. Kodesh Baruch Hu saw, according to the Meforshim, the Orach Chaim HaKodesh says this, the Zohar says this, all the Meforshim say that they had assimilated. They had forgotten about Bris Milah. They started assimilating. They didn't have Torah and Mitzvahs. They didn't have Taryag Mitzvahs like we do. They didn't have Shabbos. They didn't have Torah. They had a Milah. They didn't assimilate. They Lo Shinu es. They didn't change their garments. They didn't change their language. They didn't change their names. They had Jewish names. So they kept a difference. They kept a distinguishing difference from the Goyim. But they started mingling with the Goyim. They started mingling. V'yishritzu, it says V'yishritzu ha'aretz mehem. It says they started when their period they started multiplying like anybody's business. And V'yishritzu ha'aretz mehem. So the Sforno says they started assimilating with the hashchosa of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was a terrible. It's like
Destruction.
The evil air, the evil culture, the evil culture of Mitzrayim. It was a hashchas. It was terrible. It was just decadence. Decadence is the word, like San Francisco. So Mitzrayim was like San Francisco. It was decadent. It was the worst of the worst.
It's
America. It's America.
50 years ago. That's
Anyway, so it's getting worse. America is getting worse. It's spreading. Like it's an infection from San Francisco from California. It's going to spread over whatever it is. It started infecting them. They became infected, and they had gone down with their not assimilating, but they started assimilating. And about to go on to they were on the 49th level of Tumah. We don't understand what that is. That means that their whole being was Tameh. They lost the ability to feel ruchnius, to feel spiritual, to feel Yiddishkeit. They didn't have mitzvahs yet, right? And if they would have stayed one more night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu waited for the last minute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu waited for the last minute. At midnight, if they would have stayed past midnight, they would have sunk to the 50th level of Tumah. It would have been it. That would have been it, because it would have been over. It would have been no hope for the Yidden. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to take them out. And he waited to the very last. He knows how to do it mamish, like in the blink of an eye at the last minute. Don't blink. the last minute. So he took them out. But what happened to the 190 years? What happened to the 190 years? So partially there are those who say we're still paying for it. Yes, that's one pshat. But there's another pshat. That.
Started now.
I just want to take a break for a second, and Hamakim Menachem Eschem B'Soch Shavei L'Sim Yishalayim. He just got up from Shiva, our dear friend Reb Shalom, for his brother Reb Yitzchak Moshe ben Yosef Chaim passed away, and his neshama should have an aliyah. And I want to let you know that this shir and all the delicacies that we have in front of that this people on the screen can't see, but all the delicacies it's dedicated in the Ilui Nishmas of your dear departed brother. The neshama should have an aliyah. And I found this write-up about all the wonderful things he had, and I didn't know he's a Talmud of Gateshead in Cleveland, and he was a chavrusa with Reb Chaim. Amazing. He just got up from Shiva, so he's here now. Anyway, so what happened to the 190 years? So the answer is, the 190 years, there's an amazing going. There's an amazing going. Where's the going? Excuse me a second, I have to find the going. Here, no. Oh, I know it. Yeah, there's an amazing going. It says v'yamaru es chayehem. The pasuk says v'yamaru es chayehem. They embittered their lives. What does it mean v'yamaru es chayehem? So the trop, the musical, the cantillation on top of the Vayomaru Es Chayehim is Kadma Va'ozla. If anybody knows trop. It's Kadma Va'ozla. So there's a goin. The goin says, what's Kadma Va'ozla? What's the gematria of Kadma? Kuf Dalet Mem Aleph is 45. What's the gematria of Va'azla with an aleph at the end?
With the vav.
Aleph, Va'azla. 45. What's 45 and 145? Vayamaru es chayehim. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. Vayamaru es chayehim. This was what we call in America time and a half. When you work overtime, you get double the salary, right? They were there for the shibud was, I think, 86 years, because the shibud started when Miriam was born. The shibud started the heavy shibud. They were in Mitzrayim already, but Miriam was born in Mitzrayim. But Miriam was 6 years older than Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe now was 80. Miriam was 6 years old when he was born. So now it's 86 years of the heavy shibud. Let's say it was maybe 85, 86, whatever. What's 85 times 2? 190. So this heavy shibud of Mitzrayim was the 190 years that it was 190 years that they were missing. The 190 years that they were missing, therefore they were able to get out at 210. You can't make this up. They were supposed to get out at 400 years. Take out the 190 years of the heavy shibud, then that's the 86 years. That's 100 like 190 years, and they were still missing a little bit. When Moshe Rabbeinu came, according to the Ramban, it was 6 months before Yetzias Mitzrayim. He brings a steer in the Mishnah in the Medrash, and one measure says there was 6 months, another measure says it was 3 months. Whatever it was that when he went to Paro and Paro piled it on that we're not going to give you straw, whether it was 6 months or 3 months, it wasn't immediate. That little time was just to get over the hump, and now they can get out. And he says, so the Kodesh Baruch Hu said to him, what do you mean? What are you saying it's bad? Right? Ani v'yadaber Elokim al Moshe v'yomer Elov Ani Hashem. I'm Hashem. Everything I do is for the good. All their hardship is for the good. Right? L'chein, right? And he said what he said in last week's Pasha. He answered, Hashem said to him, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Atatira. I'm doing it right now. You jumped the gun, like you didn't wait till you get past the corner. Wait till you get past the, how many times you get anxious, right? And you do something, and 5 minutes later it works out. Just wait 5 minutes. How many times? Wait 5 minutes. This lesson, if we want to know what's hardship, if we want to know what hardship is, we should learn from the Holocaust. I said over a Maisa, there was a Hasidic Rebbe, Tzvi Hirsch Meislish. He was the, I forget, what was the name of it? Meislish. Meislish. Meisels. Maybe Meisels. Maybe Meisels. Weizsäcker, that's it. The Weizsäcker Rav. He was in Auschwitz. And then when he survived, and he went to with Chicago for a while, and he was very great Hasidic Rebbe, and he wrote a Shilas and Tshuvas sefer called Mekachi Hashem. It was a lot of the shilas that he had, because he was a Rebbe, and he had a lot of shilas in Auschwitz. So all the shilas that he had during the Holocaust is like Makim, is Oshri. Rav Oshri wrote Makim, all the shilas he had in the Kovno ghetto. So he wrote a lot of the shilas he had before and after in Auschwitz, and he called it Mekachi Hashem. Shilas and Tshuvas Mekachi Hashem, because he came from the people who were Mekachi Hashem. They died on Kiddush Hashem. So he writes. So I heard a story, and I told you over a story, the way I heard it. And as we know, that many people who say over stories in a drasha, so they add literary license and they, flower it up a little bit. So and then when I heard it 3 different ways, so I said I got to find the real story. So I found the sefer, and he's got the story in his own hand, in his own words. And this is the way it was. They went to Auschwitz. He had a talus gadol. He had a talus gadol. He inherited from his grandfather, who was who was a great rebbe. His grandfather was a great rebbe, and it had a Torah on it, a silver Torah, which was, today everybody has a silver Torah, but in those days, not very few people had a silver Torah. But a rebbe he had a rebbe a silver Torah, and he took the talus gadol with him. When they got to Auschwitz, of course, they took everything away from them. He lost he was heartbroken. It was a inheritance from his grandfather. So he was heartbroken. They took it away from him, and they shaved them and gave them the pajamas to wear, and he had to get that talus back. So he inquired where did they store all that stuff. So he found the building where they stored all that stuff. And he snuck in and he made believe he was one of the workers sorting it out, what's expensive, what's not expensive, what they're going to, give to the Nazis, that they're going to sell, whatever. So he made believe he's one of the sorters, and he found his talus, and somehow or other he sneaked it out of the building. He went back to his bunk and he's got his talus back. But he can't wear a talus skirt, even he would have put it under his pajamas, it'll stick out. He can't wear a talus gadol in Auschwitz. They're going to find him and shoot him. So he cut it up. Somehow or other he got a hold of either a pair of scissors or a knife. He cut it up and he made a talus cotton out of it. Probably untied the strings and retied them. That's what you have to do. You can't just, take the corners and use them the way they are. You have to, unless he did it kept the size. Maybe if he kept the size, so then... If he kept the size, whatever it is, with the retying the scissors. But he made a talus cotton out of it. So, but he was nervous that it's going to stick, it's going to bulge. Everybody's wearing this just little thin pajamas, and it's going. He hid it somehow or other. He was very careful about hiding it. Nobody noticed it. One day, every once in a while they sent them in for showers because they were infected with lice and everything like that, and the Nazis were nervous they would get the lice and get the disease, so they sent them in to be deloused and everything. So it was a shower room, and you got to change the clothing. So he comes out of the shower room and the bathhouse, and they had capos. The Nazis didn't do the dirty work. They had capos. There was a German communist. His name was Phoenix, a German communist named Phoenix. And he was sent to Auschwitz on a life sentence because he was a communist against the fascists. The fascists hated the communists, so they sent him for a life sentence for disloyalty to the motherland. As you're a German and you're disloyal to the motherland, so therefore he was sent to a life sentence in Auschwitz. But they didn't treat him like a Jew. He was a goy. They gave him a respectable. I mean, they had a better situation. The capos had a better situation than the Yidden did, right? So there was a capo there who was inspecting everybody, make sure that when they came out, they only had one. Some people tried to steal a second pair of pajamas, because it was finally got a clean pair of pajamas, right? Clean outfit. So they wanted to get another one. They didn't want this. In another and by the end of the week, it's going to be filled with lice. They wanted to have a change of clothing. So some people tried to sneak out a second. So he had to inspect everybody, make sure they only have one pair of pajamas. And he looked at him. He says, "Lift your shirt up." He spotted it. So Zvi Hirsch didn't have any choice. He lifted up. Says, "What's that?" He never saw that. He never saw it in his life. It's talus cotton. He's a guy. He never saw it in his life. "What's that?" So he says, "Ein Gottes Kleid." It's a godly piece of clothing. A godly Gottes Kleid, a holy piece of clothing. You still believe in your God after what all these Nazis did to you? He started beating him up. He took him into the other room and he beat the living daylights out of him. Do you still believe? You still believe? Finally, he's on the floor. He can't, and he says, "Get up and tell me if you still believe. Why has your God done all this to you?" Now, he didn't have koyach to get up. I mean, he'd just been, bashed good. And this is after, eating the Nazi, cuisine, the Auschwitz cuisine, which was, maybe half a slice of a stale piece of bread. He had no strength to get up, but he knew he had to get up, and he knew he had to answer the guy. So he got up, and he said, let me give you a mashal. Let me give you a mashal. You have a top surgeon, a professor, and there's a very rich person, a government, a SAR, a government official, very respectable, very high up, and he's got to have an emergency operation. And it goes to the professor, the best professor in the hospital, and this surgeon he takes out his scalpel, and he starts cutting right in the middle of his stomach, starts slicing, big slices. I mean, it's a heart operation, a stomach operation, but he starts slicing big slices. Now, imagine at that moment when he's slicing up this patient, a shoemaker is standing there watching this whole procedure, this operation. This is the best shoemaker around. Excuse me, Mr. Doctor, Honorable Doctor, what are you doing? I'm a professional shoemaker. I work with leather, with hides. Hides is very similar to a human body. You cut your skin, I cut the hides. I don't cut the middle of the hide. I don't cut the best place. I cut around it. I cut around it and I leave the best place untouched. What are you doing? Do you think the surgeon's going to listen to him? Do you think the surgeon's going to listen to him? He knows what he's doing. He's got to go in and get out whatever the machla is, or fix up the heart operation, or the whatever the disease is. The professor knows exactly what he's doing. Because Baruch Hu is the big professor, and we're like the little shoemaker. We don't understand, and we see him cutting, and he's cutting up cutting up Klal Yisrael into little pieces, and we don't understand why he's doing it. But he knows what he's doing, because he's the professor. Kosh Baruch Hu is the professor. So my father taught me what he heard from his father. I'll tell you what my father taught me, what he heard from his grandfather, his father. My grandfather taught my father, don't ask questions on God. Don't ask questions. Why is he doing this? You know why? He says, oh, you want to understand? He may invite you upstairs, and then you'll see it's a different perspective. Everything looks different upstairs. All of a sudden you see the whole picture, and it looks, wow. And everything he does is for the good. Don't ask questions on God. He may invite you upstairs, but if he invites you upstairs, you can't come back down again. It's a one-way ticket. So I always learned, I never ask questions on God. I don't want him to invite me upstairs. I want to have a nice long life as much as I can down here. And you, Phoenix, he spoke to this capo, I don't advise you to ask questions on God either, right? He might invite you upstairs. Phoenix got scared. He got scared, and he says, "Oh, okay, that was a good answer, Rabbi. That was a good answer." Phoenix became his friend. And he said he used to give him extra rations and help him out. He was a capo, but he was able to help out people. So this Talis Cotton, I'll tell you the end of the story of the Talis Cotton, the way he says it. It was the end of the war was winding down. They heard the American artillery a couple of miles away from the camp. They heard the booms of the artillery. The Americans are coming. And the Nazis heard it, and they were afraid that the Americans were going to overtake the camp. They didn't want them to find out, what's going on in Auschwitz. So they they wanted to transport all the prisoners away from the camp so that the Americans shouldn't capture them. And the Nazis were afraid also. So they had everybody go into, they made the transport train. Before they went into transport train, they had a capo. His name was Willie. They had another capo named Willie, and he had to check everybody that they weren't stealing things from the camp, right? They didn't want, they wanted, the Nazis wanted to hold on to everything. They were afraid that they were going to steal things from the camp, so he had checked everybody. And Willie also, he spotted the talus cotton. He still had on the talus cotton. Says, "Was ist das?" But Willie was a real Russia. Says, "What? You're still wearing your Jewish clothing?" He ripped it in shreds, and there was a wood oven, like, a heating oven in the room there. He threw it into the fire, and it got burnt up. And Rav Tzvi Meisels was very upset. Very upset. He'd struggled so long to hold on to this talus cotton, and now this guy, this Russia. They're traveling in the transport in the cattle car, and of course they're all squashed in, sitting on the floor. Willie has got a bench, so there was nighttime. They were trying to doze. Willie's on a bench. He's sleeping on a bench. He got a bench. He's a capo, and everybody else is on everybody's shoulder. And his son was there with him, and his head was on his son's shoulder, and his son said, "Tata, I can't anymore. It hurts. I can't, Tata. Please take your head off my shoulder." So, he was so exhausted. So he lifted his head up. He put it the other way, and the son put his head the other way. All of a sudden, there was an American plane strafed they thought it was a transport of German soldiers. The American plane strafed the cattle car, and a barrage of bullets, or whatever he was using, came in right where his head had been. He had been woken up. Kadosh Baruch Hu woke him up, had him turn his head the other way. It went right through the wall of the cattle car, straight into Willie, and blasted his hands off. Everybody who knew about the Maisa with the talus, "Willie, now you can't take any talesim off. Now you paid for the talus that you ripped off the rabbi." And Willie's in pain, and he got his just desserts. And then a couple of days later, so the Nazis ran away because the Americans came, and the rabbi was saved. Everything that Kadosh Baruch Hu does is for the good. Don't ask questions. We don't understand. Maybe I'll give you a different share on possibilities, but don't ask questions. Everything that happened to the Moshe Rabbeinu, everything that happened to Klal Yisrael was for the good. If they hadn't gotten out, if they hadn't upped the heat, if Kadosh Baruch Hu had not upped the heat during this time period, so this group of Klal Yisrael, this generation of Klal Yisrael, would not have gotten out. 400 years later, 400 years after, another 190 years, would have been their grandchildren got out. So Kadosh Baruch Hu made it that they had to go through a avoda kasha and a shibud gedola in order that they should get out, and they should go to Har Sinai and makabel the Torah. Kol di Ovid Rachmana Latav Ovid.